I love the Lego Movie. It just might be my favorite movie of the year, even though the year has only begun. I love everything about it. Well, I guess you could say I love everything about it, save this one teeny tiny bit of it that lasted barely over a second. Something that doesn't outright upset me or anything like that, but does make me feel a bit confused and unsure, maybe even a tad unnerved. You guys know what I'm talking about.
A bunch of others we don't need to mention.
From what I've seen, we BIONICLE fans aren't really that bothered by its cameo. I mean, whatever, right? I'm just happy they made it in some form. But while most of us will brush off BIONICLE's cameo in the movie, the more unsavory AFOLs out there see it as validation for their everlasting disdain for those darn bonkles. Yeah, we've heard it all before. You can't do anything with the pieces. They're too easy to put together. They all look the same. They're so hideous. Dumb robots. I can understand if there are people who don't like BIONICLE because they can't build a house or a car out of the pieces you get in a canister set. That's hardly a crime, though a bit unreasonable. It just isn't that kind of toy. What I really can't understand are those obnoxious, condescending AFOLs who go over the top and say things like, "I can't imagine why anyone would like this!" As if surely you must have half of your brain cells depleted if you can find enjoyment in such awful things. But I know where the vitriol really comes from. I know why they hate BIONICLE, and to an extent, Hero Factory, to this day. I know why they can't just brush it off as yet another LEGO theme and enjoy the aspects of LEGO products that are made for them. It's the same vitriol that I've had for a video game called Sonic Unleashed. For those who never saw it, in my early days on another channel, around 2009-ish, I began making reviews of Sonic games. What spurred me on, what caused me to do this, was a reception of Sonic Unleashed, specifically its daytime stages. Most Sonic fans at the time would have you believe that the daytime stages were not only the best part of that game, but how every Sonic game from that point on should play all the time. This rubbed me the wrong way, because I thought the daytime stages were, well, dumb. The levels were full of so many long corridors and whatnot, and any platforming sections or more open-ended areas seemed hardly worth noting because they just flashed by like that. I didn't like how linear and one-track minded the stages were at times, how claustrophobic they felt, how full of scripted events they were, with a cranked-up emphasis on pure speed and downplaying of other elements, making them something that I just couldn't get behind. I liked it at first, but once the wow factor wore off on me, it became less thrilling, and I began to despise the game. And so, being an irritable dumb teen at the time, I made it my mission to decry the daytime stages and make everyone see it for what it really was. To me, part of my motivation for making these reviews was, of course, to celebrate earlier games and talk about what I felt made them great. But I admit that a big part of it was also me quite simply wanting to take a poop on Unleashed because I just couldn't stand that so many other people liked the daytime stages. I felt that the reception Unleashed got would send the franchise down a dark road, and I had to in some small way try to stop that by waking people up. I was harshly imposing my views on others. And that's no good. Basically, my thought process amounted to this. Too many people like this. They like it too much. This is wrong. I have to make them stop liking it. I was being a jerk, and I regret making my Sonic Unleashed review more by the day. Why? Because I grew up! I realized that it's okay for people to like things that I don't like. Apparently there are a few AFOLs who have yet to mature to that point. The important thing to note here is that I was dead wrong about the future of Sonic. The games that followed had more complex, open-level designs that just had a bit more going on in them, and I had nothing to worry about. The games that followed got a lot better, and I was wrong all along. My emotional investment in a freaking video game was unnecessary and misplaced. Now, look, I'm not here to make any sweeping generalization of AFOLs as a bunch of, well, another word that sounds like that acronym. Most AFOLs are okay guys who are either indifferent to BIONICLE or maybe even acknowledge that it's kinda cool in its own way. At least on places like Eurobricks, you're not going to find that many guys who outright hate BIONICLE and view its fans as tasteless morons, especially these days. Sure, in some circles on the internet, but good luck finding any such cartoonishly mean groups of narrow-minded people. At the very worst, most AFOLs just can't get into BIONICLE, and they leave it at that. Which is perfectly fine. However, there's always going to be that vocal minority of people who, even today, simply can't stand that BIONICLE was ever a thing, now emboldened by its passing and pretty demeaning reference in the LEGO Movie. And I can't help thinking that these guys must feel the same way I once did about Sonic Unleashed. Just imagine what it must have been like to be these guys, hearing day in and day out from all these dumb new kids who obviously have no idea what LEGOs are about how awesome BIONICLE was. Imagine how frustrating it must have been to see Bionicle characters on the covers of so many issues of LEGO Magazine, and see those dang comics that came with the magazines shoving these things in your face as a key component of what LEGO is. Imagine how horrifying it must have been to see Bionicle pieces starting to creep their way into your traditional brick-based system sets, and see traditional system bricks and Bionicle pieces being mixed together. Just try to grasp how worrying it must have been to see LEGO falter as a company in the late 90s, only to suddenly be saved by these bizarre robot thingamajigs that sold like hotcakes for some reason you just couldn't figure out, as if they're somehow better than the traditional LEGO bricks you've grown to love. I don't think it's irrational to suggest that these Bionicle haters may have had a very irrational fear that LEGO may eventually abandon the bricks that made us so great back in the day, and become a company that only makes gaudy action figures that you just can't do much else with. I mean, of course it sounds stupid now to even think that, but I'm sure there are at least a few people who felt that way at some point, and that's why they can't just acknowledge Bionicle as something. That's why they couldn't just let people enjoy it, why they couldn't let the kids have their fun. That's why they couldn't simply let Bionicle be its own thing and wanted it gone, because it wouldn't let them have their own thing for a time during this dark age where the lines were blurred more than they'd like. In their eyes, its absurd level of popularity was dangerous, and the very nature of the sets was not only alien to them, but harmful to the LEGO brand as a whole, having the potential to transform it into something ugly that they couldn't get behind. They saw it as a threat to the LEGOs they loved, something that they needed to defeat, to crush, and save LEGO. They made it something horrible in their own eyes, and yes, it is their own fault that they felt this way, because I can say the same thing about myself. Not just in regards to Sonic Unleashed, but for a time, things like Hero Factory. In the end, here's all I have to say to the worst, and I do mean absolute worst, of the AFOls out there. Just let people play with their toys. Don't call them stupid for liking things just because you don't. Don't personify these things as some monster that's going to kill your LEGO. And don't let anyone ruin it for you. Something I've heard too many people say about, well, pretty much everything at some point. Point is, get over yourselves and play with your LEGO bricks. Come to think of it, here's something I want to end this with. A few years ago, I was in the LEGO aisle as this nice elderly lady fumbled around looking like she was searching for something and having the hardest time finding it. I could already guess that she was getting a present for a grandchild of hers and decided to help. Turns out she wasn't looking for any one particular set that I'd be able to recognize from a vague description, something that said grandchild probably specifically asked her for. She was just looking for a set. She was looking for Legos. I asked her what she meant, since it looked to me like we were surrounded by Legos. And she asked me where the bricks were. Just bricks. Just a pile of bricks. To her, that's what Legos were. Not all these fins and tubes and gears and whatnot. Not these Jedi starfighters and what have you. Just bricks. I don't remember what I said to her next. And I'm not sure what I'd say to her now if it happened again. I wonder if she remembers that day. I wonder if she's still alive. Whatever she got the kid for their birthday, I just hope they liked it. Doodles.